today on Maple Leafs Man Advantage, I'm going to bring to you some more players that have now, through the course of time, have finished playing in Toronto or have retired, and I'm going to add them to the Leafs Legends list. And there's four of them, and every single one of them is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So of the seven guys I got on the list, five of them are Hall of Famers. Not so bad, not a too shabby way to start this list off. So here's the first three there. You got Dick Duff, Billy Harris, and Ron Stewart. Those boys won some Stanley Cups. And we're going to slide down here, and we got Frank Mahovlich. So he was traded to the Detroit Red Wings. But I'm going to talk about each of these guys a little bit. Some information I found found out about them, and everything like that. So Frank Mahovlich, he was born in Timmins, Ontario on January the 10th, 1938. He was known as Big M. He was, I think, like 6'1", which at the time was a pretty big guy in the NHL. But he did have an even taller younger brother, Pete Mahovlich. He stood 6'5". So he would have been pretty darn big back in the day, and he was known as Little M. So that's pretty funny. Now Frank, he originally signed with the Leafs, and then he played with the St. Mike's Majors. There he played with former Leafs legend Joe Primo. He is in the Hockey Hall of Fame as well, and he played with the Leafs from 1927 to 1936. And he won the 1932 Stanley Cup as a player with the Leafs. He also coached the Leafs for 3 seasons, 1950 through 1953, and he won the 1951 Stanley Cup as a coach. He won 97 games and had a .562 winning percentage. Frank, though, later said he was the best coach he had ever played for, playing with the St. Mike's Majors. Frank went on to win the Calder Trophy in his first year. As you can see, I got it written down there. 1957-58, he scored 20 goals, but the Leafs finished in last place. King Clancy with the Leafs. He used to say that Frank was going to be Moses and lead the team to much better times, as the Leafs had not won a cup since 1951, coached by Joe Primo in 1951, as I said. And that was when Bill Barilko scored the game winner, that epic game winner. And if I'm not mistaken, that's where the Big M comes from, is from him being called Moses, not his last name, which is interesting. I always thought it was from his last name, but it may, in fact, be from him being referred to as Moses. Interesting to note as well, the Chicago Blackhawks owner James Norris offered a cool $1 million to be the to the Leafs for the rights to Frank Mahovlich. He thought he had a deal with Leafs co-owner Dasu Harold Ballard at the time, but when he came to Maple Leaf Gardens with a check, the deal in turn was rejected, and Mahovlich stayed with the Leafs, who was then signed the following day so that he could start the season or the All-Star game, because that's how the seasons were started back then. So he could start the season with the Leafs. Interesting. So Frank went on to win 4 Stanley Cups, as we see there with the Leafs. So that's 1962, 63, 64, and 67. All four of these guys, they've won those same Stanley Cups. And in his career, he played an amazing 15 All-Star games in the NHL, 8 with the Leafs, which is pretty darn good, and was MVP of the All-Star game twice. He led the NHL in game-winning goals in 1961-62 when he had 9, and the following season, 1962-63, when he had 8. He was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1981. After his playing career in 1998, Canadian Prime Minister Jean Chrétien appointed Frank to the Senate of Canada, where he stayed until his birthday in 2013. An interesting note as well, there's a lot of them about Frank here. He was the first player to actually hold the Stanley Cup above his head. When he got back to the dressing room with the cup, he was amazed at how light the cup actually was and held it over his head. A picture was taken of of him doing this feat, and is now total commonplace for players to do this. I think every single one of them does that now. But supposedly he was the first player to do that. Now, personally, I read a book called The Big M, the Frank Mahovlich story, written by his son, Ted Mahovlich. Sorry about that. Moving around here. My cat's up here, causing chaos. There he is. There's my cat, Ludo. Say hello to everybody. It was a pretty good read and really goes into some of his problems he experienced with Hans Mahovlich, the GM and coach of the Leafs. They did not really get along at all. Frank was not the only one to have that problem. But on a personal note, a couple players I kind of compare him to in seeing Frank play. Um, a couple of guys I grew up when I grew up watching, big men too. They were bigger than him, but big guys. Mario Lemieux and Matt Sundin, big guys. They made it look effortless out there. Um, and I don't know, they kind of, I don't know, to me, kind of played with that same kind of style, like, um, basically, really, anyways. And one final piece of weird trivia is that Frank's father, Peter, used to sharpen John Candy's skates when he was a kid. That's John Candy from SCTV, Canadian comic legend. He used to sharpen his skates. So with the Leafs, as we see, he played 720 games over 12 seasons. He scored 296 goals in the regular season with 301 assists for 597 points. He also, during this time, he had 780 penalty minutes. He wasn't afraid of the penalty box in Toronto. He didn't do that in other places, but he did do it in Toronto. He had six career hat tricks with the Leafs. That's pretty good. And in the playoffs, he played 84 games. He had 24 goals, 36 assists for 60 points, and 135 penalty minutes. And as you can see, he had 9 game winners, which is pretty darn good, as well in those 84 games. So there you go. That's Frank Mahovlich. So next up on the list, we got Allan Stanley. He was also born in Timmins, Ontario on March the 1st, 1926. Allan, he went by the names of Snowshoes due to his slow skating skill, which may mean maybe in today's hockey he may not make it. He may not be. It's absolutely a different game now. He also went by the nickname Silent Sam as well. So as you can see, he won those 4 Stanley Cups, all with the Leafs. He was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame same year Frank Mahovlich was, 1981. He's in there. He played for the Leafs over the course of 10 seasons and ended up playing 630 games with 47 goals, 186 assists for 233 points. He was an all-star in Toronto 5 times. And in the playoffs, Allan played 82 games with the Leafs, had 4 goals, 27 assists for 31 points. Now, I kind of throw some of these numbers at you, but really, it was not his offensive numbers that made Allan so important, but really his stay-at-home style on defense. And he was usually partnered with a guy I'm going to mention later, Tim Horton of the Leafs. They were a good, excellent, not good, excellent combo out there for the Leafs, playing excellent defensive hockey there, hitting the bodies hard and onto the boards, doing a good job. Sadly, Allan did pass away on October the 18th, 2013, at the age of 87 years old. So that is Allan Stanley. Woo! Next up, we got Johnny Bower. Try and maybe lower the camera a bit here if I can. There we go. Come on, there we go. Johnny Bower. So he was nicknamed the China Wall, And there was always a question as to how old Johnny really was. Supposedly, I'll say that, I guess, he was born on November the 8th, 20, or not 20, 1924. That would make him 100 years old if he were still alive today. He was born under the name John William Kizkan, I think is how you pronounce that, to Ukrainian parents who had immigrated to Canada. Johnny, he grew up poor, but he taught himself how to play hockey and you actually used an old mattress as goalie pads. He was 15 at the time and he lied about his age so that he could join the Canadian Army. So from 1940 to 1943, he was stationed in England and was a gunner in the 2nd Canadian Division. Johnny, though he was discharged for having rheumatoid arthritis in his hands, when Johnny came back to Canada, he decided he would give hockey another shot. And good for him that he did. Um, it was a long, long, grueling road, though, compared to almost all other Hall of Fame goalies, I would say. He made his way to the AHL in 1945, where he played for 11 seasons, mostly for the Cleveland Barons. While in the AHL, he actually won the Calder Cup 3 times. So that's like their Stanley Cup, the Calder Cup. To most, this would be a nice tie up to a Western kid from Saskatchewan who made the minors for over a decade and was extremely successful playing in that field. But really, that was just the beginning to the story. The meat of the story really hadn't even started yet, really, to the Leaf fan. Now, in addition, Johnny legally changed his name to Bower. And when I read a book about him, I'll talk about that later here, but it's still up in the air exactly why he did this. But it was in the 1958 Interleague draft. Punch Imlach hit a home run here. He did a wonderful job here. He selected Johnny Bower, who I believe was with the New York Rangers. He played a few seasons there. One he played like every single game for them, but the other two he was used sparingly, maybe 5 games in total over 2 years, sorry. Um, but it was in the 1958-59 season the Leafs gave. He's now 34 years old. They're giving him a chance to play net in Toronto alongside Ed Chadwick. He was the other goalie who was almost 10 years his junior in Toronto. So what did Johnny do in Toronto? He won 4 Stanley Cups. He won 2 Vezinas, so that was 1960-61 and 1964-65. Now those Vezinas, I know the one 64-65, that was along with Terry Sawchuk as well. So it was kind of like a team trophy back then. It wasn't for just one individual goalie. So if you played enough for that team, you would be winning the Vezina along with your goalie partner as well back in the day. But he also led the league in wins in 1960-61 with 33. He led the league in save percentage on 6 occasions and led the league in goals against average in 3 different occasions, all while with the Leafs. And with the Leafs, Johnny played 475 games. He won 219 of those games. He tied 79, had 32 shutouts, a very nice 250 goals against average, really good 922 save percentage. And then, as we see in the playoffs, Johnny played 74 games for the Leafs. He won 35 of those games and had 5 shutouts. Sorry, that's my finger. Yeah, he had 5 shutouts, 247 goals against average, and a 924 save percentage. Talk about not changing your game at all. That's awesome. He played up to what they brought him all the time. Great goalie, amazing goalie in the Hockey Hall of Fame, as you see there. Um, Great job there. So now, one thing I will add here too about Johnny, um, since Johnny came into the league so late, if you added both of his AHL and NHL numbers together total, I know you can't do that. They're different leagues. I got you. But if you add them up together, he played 1,207 games and had 639 wins, 135 ties, and 89 shutouts. I'm unable to get the exact numbers on the save percentage and goals against average while he played in the AHL, but when you add those numbers up, it's amazing. His numbers in both of those categories put him at number two all time behind only Martin Brodeur in wins and games. Marty had 691 wins and played 1,266 games in the NHL. Amazing stuff there. To this day, Johnny, he actually is the all-time leader in wins in the AHL. Amazing because he went on after that to go to the NHL and make the Hockey Hall of Fame. Amazing stuff. So I was talking about, I read a book about him. It was called Bower, A Legendary Life by Dan Robson. And I would highly recommend this book to anyone who would like to learn more about Johnny. Um, Anybody, any hockey fan, you don't have to be just a Leafs fan. Any hockey fan. It's a great read, and really reading about a time in hockey before the NHL expansion when there was only 6 teams. Um, so like incredibly difficult for, as you could see, a man like Johnny to make the NHL and be a full-time goalie. Um, so yeah. Um, and he was the last guy in net. Him and Terry Sawchuk. Sawchuk actually played a lot of the games in '67 for the Leafs, but he was one of those guys. The last time the Toronto Maple Leafs to date, right now, won a Stanley Cup. And a couple of other things I'm going to say here. Sorry to anyone out there that wanted a real short video. I got a lot to talk about these guys here. But in my life as a Leaf fan, I have a list of favorite Leaf goalies that will include at the top of the list like Curtis Joseph and Felix Potvin. They were the two guys, my favorites. And I'll always have a spot for the two goalies I remember first as a kid. I liked them, Kenny Reggett and Alan Bester. But after reading that book and finally seeing some of Johnny's time in net. Um, I think he might be my favorite Leaf goalie of all time. And this dude didn't wear a mask, by the way. I haven't even mentioned that. Didn't wear a mask. I think he put it on for a game or two or something. There's a funny photo I've seen of him wearing it looked like wearing like a glass shield or something. It looked crazy, but he did not wear a mask in the net. Uh, just incredible that you would even try that. And it's interesting because this guy's way before my time. My dad was like a teenager when he was winning cups in Toronto. Um, but I will say, when I was a kid playing road hockey with my buddies, and if I was playing net, of course, with no mask, because I was tough, right? Yeah, right, okay. But anyways, if I was playing net and making these big, 10 bell amazing saves that wow, everybody's like good save. I would think of myself as Johnny Bower sometimes. I'd be like, yeah, I'm Johnny Bower. You can't beat me. It was pretty cool. But anyways, after Johnny's retirement from playing, he stayed with the Leafs and performed many tasks, including he was a scout, goalie coach, and he was even an assistant coach between 1976, sorry, 78. And he was absolutely elected to the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1976 and to the AHL Hall of Fame in 2006. And this is another interesting note here. From what I could find out, the only other player elected to both of these Hall of Fames is Eddie Shore. So like Eddie Shore and Johnny Bower are the only two guys in both of those Hall of Fames, and that's an incredible ask right there to be able to do that. Sadly, though, on December 26th, 2017, Johnny passed away at the age of 93 of pneumonia. And he will always be remembered by those who played with him and cheered him on. His biggest move for me as a goalie was using the poke check to get the puck off the opponent's stick. And I see it in today's hockey, and I instantly think of Johnny Bower and how extremely effective it can be if used correctly. And that I don't know, that doesn't even go on your stat sheet, but like, who cares? Like, you're uh, you're saving the day with a great move like that. So yeah, that's Johnny Bower, goaltender. And I got one more guy here, one more Leaf legend to add to this list tonight, and then I can let you go after that. But we're gonna go down. There we go. Tim Horton, Timmy Horton. Now, as I said, even in my blog, Tim Horton is known for a hot cup of coffee, a ham and cheddar sandwich, or a bowl of chili. Um, Excellent that some people remember Tim Horton for something else. He was a hard-hitting Hall of Fame defenseman who played for the Toronto Maple Leafs over the parts of 20 seasons. Incredible. At the age of 44, Tim was still playing in the NHL, but sadly he did pass away, or he on February 21st, 1974, he did die in a single vehicle crash while he was intoxicated. It was around St. Catharines, Ontario, on the QEW or Queen Elizabeth um, Highway there. So Tim, he was also known as Superman. Amazing nickname and richly deserved. He was born in Cochrane, Ontario, and was signed by the Leafs in 1948. He then moved to Toronto and played for the St. Michael's College School. Tim was known for his strength, his hard work, as well as being an extremely durable defenseman. To this day, he holds the Leafs record for defensemen with 486 consecutive regular season games. So he played hard, and I'm sure he played hurt too, playing that many games in a row. Now, while playing with the Leafs, Tim played 1,184 games. He scored, as you can see, 109 goals. He added 349 assists for 458 points. To go along with 1,389 penalty minutes, he won those four Stanley Cups in the 60s. And with the Leafs, he played 7 All-Star games. He finished second in the Norris voting on 2 separate occasions. Unfortunately, he never did win the Norris, but he came second a couple of times. Now, Tim, he did open his first coffee joint in 1964 in Hamilton on Ottawa Street. Before this, Tim had also been involved in a hamburger restaurant as well as a Studebaker dealership in Toronto before going to the coffee shop. Um, so there you go. When Tim did die, there were 40 restaurants, so he was coming along there. And by 2013, there were 4,600 of them. Wow, they're everywhere. In my neck of the woods, if you need a coffee and you're out, it's generally this place where most people go to get one. Personally, I like mine with 2 milk if you want to know and stop by and give me a coffee. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So yeah, Tim, he was a sturdy, strong defenseman who did not deal with too many injuries that pulled him from the lineup over his career, which is incredible. Um, Sadly missed by the Leafs on the day he was traded, and I don't believe he was ever replaced. They never replaced him. So there you go. The second defenseman added to my list alongside his old defense partner, Allan Stanley. As well in the playoffs, he played 97 games for the Leafs. He had 9 goals, as you see in the playoffs, with 32 assists for 41 points. And yep, Tim, he was in the penalty box too. He had 135 penalty minutes, and he did have a game winner. So there you go. There you go, my guys. Added to, here we go, getting up my Leafs Legends list. And there you have it. So thank you very much. Have an excellent night. And if you like this video, don't be afraid to hit like or subscribe. I got many more videos about the Leafs as well. And if you want to comment on anything, go ahead and do so. Love talking hockey. If you know anything about these guys or ever saw them play live, that would have been amazing. But anyways, that's it. So until next time, go Leafs, go.